Professor Nam-Yong Lee's commentary Long, The Case for Nominating Kim Moon-soo as Seoul Mayor, Why the People Power Party Must Choose to Win. Within the People Power Party, figures such as Assemblyman Ahn Cheol-soo have openly argued that former Minister Kim Moon-soo should run for mayor of Seoul. Treating this debate as a simple personal recommendation or a casual "it would be nice if he ran" suggestion misses the core of the issue. The Seoul mayoral election is not merely one battleground among many local races. It is a symbolic arena that shapes the framework of elections across the metropolitan area and the nation as a whole. How Seoul is defined politically determines the public's evaluation of the administration, the visibility and credibility of the opposition, and even the contours of the next political realignment. The key question, therefore, is this: would the People Power Party gain a favourable strategic position if Kim Moon-soo became its mayoral candidate in Seoul? And one step further, why must this be not an individual decision, but a party-level decision? First, the Seoul mayoral election is not a contest of administrative resumes, but a competition of political messages. Seoul voters do not assess candidates solely on individual policy items, such as transportation, housing, or welfare. They look at how the mayor will relate to national politics, what balance of power the office will create, and which values will guide the governance of the city. Seoul is the stage on which the national direction is projected. The candidate the People Power Party should put forward, therefore, is not a technocratic manager, but a political representative capable of explaining values and direction in language citizens can understand. Kim Moon-soo, with his rare background, encompassing both labour activism and national governance, is able to weave growth, labour, fairness and order into a single coherent narrative. This narrative capacity is a decisive asset in a Seoul mayoral race. Second, the Kim Moon-soo option offers the People Power Party a strategic advantage by clarifying its identity. In past elections, the party's message has often wavered between courting the centre and consolidating its conservative base, repeatedly prompting voters to ask, what does this party stand for? Kim Moon-soo is a politician who articulates core conservative values: freedom, responsibility, the rule of law and growth, not as slogans but through lived experience and logical argument. The candidate a party should choose is not one who offends no one, but one who clearly defines the party's direction. The sharper the identity, the more firmly the base consolidates, and the more seriously the centre begins to compare options. A blurred party moves no one. Third, even from a purely electoral engineering perspective, Kim Moon-soo is closer to a nomination candidate than a primary candidate. Seoul mayoral primaries have repeatedly devolved into internal wars of attrition, name recognition battles, negative campaigning and factional conflict, leaving the party weakened at the start of the general election. Kim Moon-soo, by contrast, is already a nationally vetted figure. The argument that a primary is needed for verification is unconvincing. In practice, primaries often produce wounds rather than validation. If the party confirms its candidate early, the energy and time that would have been consumed by internal competition can be redirected toward general election preparation, policy packages, organizational readiness, and message unification. In local elections, time translates directly into votes. Parties that decide late tend to lose late and lose overall. Fourth, nominating Kim Moon-soo is a choice that strengthens the party organisation. At its core, local elections are about organisation. Metropolitan and grassroots structures only mobilise when they are convinced why they must run. The strongest mobilising logic is a clear party decision. Primary winners often emerge with a narrow internal support base, while emotional residues from the contest linger throughout the organisation. A strategically nominated candidate, by contrast, allows party members and local operatives to move under a shared rationale. This is the party's choice. In elections, legitimacy creates mobilization. Kim Moon-soo, who has endured politically through his own narrative and legitimacy rather than factional backing, is particularly well suited to unify the party organization into a single line of action. Fifth, a Seoul mayoral candidate is not merely a candidate for Seoul. The Seoul candidate sets the tone for the entire metropolitan area and, by extension, the nationwide local elections. What is said in Seoul unifies the messages of candidates across the country and shapes the language of the election itself. The moment Kim Moon-soo is positioned as the Seoul mayoral candidate, the People Power Party gains not just a Seoul strategy, but a single message axis that cuts through the entire election. Local elections fought as isolated regional skirmishes scatter momentum. Elections anchored around Seoul consolidate it. In metropolitan races especially, unified messaging wins. Of course, no choice is without risk. Kim Moon-soo's strong image is both an asset and, for some voters, a potential burden. Yet in politics, attempts to reduce risk to zero typically produce colourless candidates, and colourlessness leads to low turnout, weak mobilization, and poor consolidation. Local elections are not contests to find a perfect candidate, but contests among comparable choices, depending on who the opposing candidate is and on the frame through which the People Power Party conducts the election. Kim Moon-soo's strengths can become even more pronounced. The conclusion is clear. Kim Moon-soo's entry into the Seoul mayoral race should not be treated as a personal decision to join a primary, but as a strategic determination that the People Power Party must design and take responsibility for at the party level. If the party views the upcoming local elections not as a short-term skirmish, but as the starting point of a medium to long-term political realignment, then a combat-ready approach, consolidate through nomination, is more rational than a managerial approach of select through a primary. What is needed now is not time wasted on internal competition over candidates, but time spent persuading the electorate around a single candidate. If the People Power Party seeks a favourable strategic position, Kim Moon-soo should be evaluated not as a merely possible option, but as a candidate the party should actively nominate. Thank you for watching Professor Nam-Yong Lee's commentary. Long.